Senate will come to order. Mr. Carpenter, please call the roll.
Senators Bridges, Cook, Quorum, Court, Crowder, Danielson, Donovan, Finberg, Fields, Foote, Gardner, Janal, Gonzalez, Hill, Heisey, Holbert, Lee, Lundeen,
Excuse.
Marble, Moreno, Pedersen, Pedersen,
Absent.
Priola, Rankin, Rodriguez, Scott,
Excused.
Smallwood,
Excused.
Sonnenberg, Story, Tate, Todd,
Excused.
Williams, Winter, Woodward, Zinzinger. Mr. President,
Here, with 30 present, 1 absent, and 4 excused, we have a quorum. Senator Rodriguez, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you, Mr. President. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Approval of the Journal. Senator Story.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the reading of the Journal of Monday, February 11th, 2019 be dispensed with and that the Journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion is adopted. Mr. Carpenter, please add Senator Pedersen to the roll call. Committee reports.
February 11th, 2019, Community State Veterans and Military Affairs, after consideration of Mayor's Committee as following. Senate Bill 110 be postponed indefinitely. February 11th, 2019, Committee of Business, Labor, and Technology, after consideration of Mayor's Committee as following. Senate Bill 103 be referred to Committee to hold a favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. February 11th, 2019, Committee on Business, Labor, and Technology, after consideration of Mayor's Committee as following. Senate Bill 90 be amended as follows. As submitted referred to Committee to hold a favorable recommendation. February 11th, 2019, Committee on Business, Labor, and Technology, after consideration of Mayor's Committee as following. House Bill 1014 be referred to Committee to hold a favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar.
Senate Services.
Correctly printed. Senate Bill 136, correctly engrossed. Senate Bill 1349, 71, 92, and 100, correctly re-engrossed. Senate Bill 19 and 105, correctly revised. House Bill 1029, correctly enrolled. Senate Bill 21.
Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate proceed out of order for purposes of a moment of personal privilege for Senator Janal.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted, and the Senate will proceed out of order to take up moment of personal privilege.
He'll call you in just a second. And then to request.
Mr. Carpenter, please add Senator Lundeen, Senator Smallwood, and Senator Todd to the roll call. Senator Janal.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I do request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'm asking all of the senators here today if anyone who has been an alumni of CSU, who has children or family that goes to CSU, can you please come down and join me in the well? Thank you, Senator Fields. I know there's more people than that. This is for those of you who weren't listening, I would love to have your presence if you have been a graduate of CSU, have family that goes to CSU, come on down and join me in the well. Thank you. I think they're coming down slowly. All proud Rams. Yesterday, February 11th, was CSU's 149th birthday, also known as Founders Day. The Morrill Act of 1862, signed into law by President Abraham Lincoln, gave each eligible state a gift of federal land to be used to establish an educational institution, promoting the liberal and practical education of the industrial classes. Governor Edward McCook in 1870 signed a bill to create the Agricultural College of Colorado, which would become CSU in Fort Collins. And during its 149 years since its founding, CSU has evolved into one of the nation's premier research universities while remaining true to the land-grant roots. We would all like to present, and there's more of you, thank you. We would all like to present a tribute to CSU and recognize some of the esteemed guests that are here. But before that, I would like to read a tribute. The Colorado State Senate, convened on the first regular day of session, hereby extends the heartiest congratulations and commendation to Colorado State University Founders Day 2019. On February 11th, 2019, Colorado State University will celebrate 149 years of providing life-changing educational experiences to more than 200,000 living graduates, and joins with Colorado State University Pueblo and the CSU Global Campus in honoring the history, strength, and service to Colorado of these three great universities of the CSU system. Today, the CSU system is unlike any other university system in the nation, offering different learning environments, a range of educational opportunities, diverse student populations, and an emphasis on innovation and hands-on learning experiences, which attract more than 44,000 new and returning undergraduate and graduate scholars annually. Together, these CSU school systems work hard to serve Colorado by delivering a high-quality, world-class education that is efficient, affordable, and tailored to the diverse educational needs of Colorado. This shared commitment to access, excellence, and service to Colorado is what we celebrate as we honor Colorado State University on Founders Day 2019. On request of Senator Joanne Ginal, Representatives Jenny Arndt and Kathy Kipp, given this 12th day of February 2019, State Capitol of Denver, Colorado, signed by the President of the Senate, Leroy M. Garcia. Thank you, and happy birthday, Colorado State University. Now, I would like to recognize folks that are in the audience that do have a significant contribution to Colorado State University. President of CSU in Fort Collins, Dr. Tony Frank, and Dr. Becky Takeda Tinker, who is president of CSU Global Campus. Thank you both for being here today. And once again, happy birthday, CSU.
Senator Ginal will be respectfully fined under the rules. Senator Phillips is recognized.
Good morning, Mr. President. I would like to request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I, too, would like to congratulate Colorado State University for all the great work they do. I'm proud to say that my kids are CSU Rams. My daughter graduated with a dual degree in microbiology and biology, and my son graduated with a degree in CSU in speech communication and rhetoric, and also ethnic studies. I can remember when they applied to schools, they applied to many different schools, but they chose to attend Colorado State University. And the reason I think they did that is they had this program, a summer program that would get you exposed and acclimated to the campus. They fell in love with CSU, but what they fell in love with most of all was the staff. Their staff was caring. Their staff was attentive to making sure that they would graduate on time. So I can't thank CSU and the faculty and staff for all that you do for all students, helping them transform their lives, preparing them to take their place in our community in their future. Thank you, CSU. Appreciate you.
Mr. Majority Leader. Committee reports.
February 11, 2019, Committee Judiciary, after consideration of Mayor's Committee is following House Bill 1060, be referred to Committee of the Whole of Favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. February 11, 2019, Committee Judiciary, after consideration of Mayor's Committee is following Senate Bill 109, be referred to Committee of the Whole of Favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. February 11, 2019, Committee Judiciary, after consideration of Mayor's Committee is following Senate Bill 36, be amended as follows. I submit to be referred to Committee on Appropriations with the favorable recommendation.
Third reading of bills, consent calendar. Mr. Carpenter, please read the titles to all the bills on the consent calendar.
Senate Bill 100 by Senator Gardner and Representative Tipper concerning the creation of the Uniform Civil Remedies for Unauthorized Disclosure of Intimate Damages Act. Senate Bill 71 by Senator Fields and Representative Roberts concerning expanding the admission of out-of-court statements of a child.
Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the passage of all the bills on the third reading of bills consent calendar, which includes Senate Bill 100 and Senate Bill 71.
Is there any discussion on any of the bills? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of all the bills on the third reading consent calendar. Are there any no votes on any of the bills on third reading consent calendar? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Bill 100 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Crowder, Moreno, Heisey, Cook, Lundeen, Woodward, Priola, Tate, Rankin, Marble, Pedersen, Bridges, with a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Senate Bill 071 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Cook, Gardner, Crowder, Lundeen, Pedersen, Todd, Janal, the Majority Leader, Moreno, Lee, Court, Tate, Marble, Winter, Story, Woodward, Smallwood, please add the President. Third reading of bills. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to House Bill 1011.
House Bill 1011 by Representative Hooten and Senator Tate concerning clarification of the scope of existing sales tax exemption for manufactured homes.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I kindly move House Bill 1011 on third reading and final passage. Ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1011? Seeing none, the motion is a passage of House Bill 1011. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, House Bill 1011 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Bridges, Winter, Crowder, Gardner, Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to Senate Bill 092.
Senate Bill 92 by Senators Zenzinger and Cook and Representative Tipper and Liston concerning a prohibition on using an illuminated check engine light as the sole criterion for failure of an admissions test.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. We move Senate Bill 92 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 092? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of Senate Bill 092. Are there any no votes? Senator Winter, Pedersen, Priola. With a vote of 31 ayes, 3 no votes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Senate Bill 092 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Moreno, Bridges, Rodriguez, Heisey, Hill, Marble, Gardner, Tate, Rankin, Smallwood, Woodward, Lundin, Todd, Janal. The Minority Leader. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to Senate Bill 013.
Senate Bill 13 by Senators Marble and Janal and Representatives Hooten and Ransom concerning the conditions for medical marijuana use for disabling medical conditions in connection therewith, adding a condition for which a physician could prescribe an opiate to the list of disabling medical conditions for medical marijuana use.
Senator Marble.
Thank you, Mr. President. We move Senate Bill 13 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 013? Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had an opportunity to review.
Senator Fields will be fined accordingly under the rules for referring to the President as the chair.
My dear Mr. President, I will gladly pay the fine, Mr. President. I do apologize. But, Mr. President, I have a question for the bill sponsor on the amendment, because on the amendment it does allow for the use of medical marijuana in our preschool settings. I was wondering if I can get clarification as to why we would allow for the use of marijuana. I know it's going to be in a non-smokable form, but if you can just explain the logic about why we would want to have medical marijuana use on a preschool facility.
Senator Marble.
Thank you so very much, Mr. President. What is going on with Senate Bill 13, and especially with the amendment, it was copied and pasted out of Jack's Law, which was passed 3 years ago by the minority leader and myself and others unanimously. It is in section 22(1)(119.3, and that law was voted on by everyone, and there was no problem at that time. So the amendment clarifies that it again is mirroring what is in Jack's Law.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 13? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of Senate Bill 13. Are there any no votes? Senator Cook, Senators Priola, Smallwood, Gardner, Fields, Lundin, Woodward. With a vote of 27 ayes, 7 no votes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Senate Bill 13 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Crowder, Moreno, Tate, Majority Leader Gonzalez, Todd, Quorum. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to Senate Bill 049.
Senate Bill 49 by Senator Fields and Representative Michelson Janae concerning increasing the statute of limitations for certain failure to report child sexual abuse crimes.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear Mr. President, I move Senate Bill 49 on third reading with a favorable recommendation.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 49? Senator Hill.
Mr. President, colleagues, I do want to explain why I'll be voting no on this bill. I don't know necessarily that the change from 18 months to 5 years is a reason in and of itself to vote no on this bill. I do have a concern about our increasing tendency down here to continue to expand this kind of long-held notion of what the importance and why we have statute of limitations, not just in Colorado, but really as a fundamental part of how our legal system was built up. We have an amazingly fallible memory. And if you're interested in this, Malcolm Gladwell does a phenomenal podcast And he's got 2 episodes in that podcast. One is called Free Brian Williams, when he walks through the challenges of how we remember things, the science of how we remember things, goes through even the longitudinal studies about well-respected people who legitimately don't remember what they were doing on 9/11. It's really quite fascinating. And the reason I bring that up into this bill is we have a statute of limitations in the United States recognizing the fallibility of our memory. And I believe we're tempted for 2 reasons to continue to expand these statute of limitations. One of the reasons is we think with everything documented with our phones, pictures, video recording, you name it, that we don't have, we're not as forgetful because so much is documented. And in fact, there's actually evidence to suggest we're more forgetful because we depend on those. The other is more of an emotional response, where we hear from our DAs to say, well, we could have convicted these people if we had extended the statute of limitations. And I think that's actually an unhealthy approach, because we're just looking at a dispositive case. A dispositive case that says, well, and we all kind of agree these people should be convicted, but the price I'm concerned we pay in the long run is that we actually weaken a system and make it over-dependent upon our ability to remember, or in some cases misremember. And I think we actually weaken and undermine our long-term opportunities to have a deep-seated trust in our judicial system. So respectfully, I will be a no on this today.
Senator Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear Mr. President, I'd like to respond to the comments that was just made by the good senator from Colorado Springs. He mentioned that we had changed the statute of limitation to 5 years. That was amended, and so it was amended down to 3 years. Right now, the statute of limitation for mandatory reporters is 18 months. And if someone keeps that report quiet for 18 months and 1 day, they are absolved of their responsibility for protecting that child. Members, this is a very good bill that took a lot of negotiation and compromise and consensus, and I think it's at a good place. When we hear the senator from Colorado Springs say something like, people may not remember 5 years or 3 years, but we have no statute of limitation on murder. And the same argument exists. So if there's no statute of limitations on murder, and then it's the prerogative of the DA to determine if that case should move forward or not, then the same argument exists. There's no statute of limitation for kidnapping. The same argument could exist, that maybe the memory might fade. You might not have access to all the reports, but there's no statute of limitation for murder or for kidnapping. There's also no statute of limitation for child sexual abuse or neglect. So if a child could not report that family member or whoever it was that abused them when they were in the 2nd grade, and now they find themselves in college and they want to report that, there's no statute of limitation. But it's up to the discretion of our district attorneys to determine if that case should move forward based on the evidence that they have. What this bill does, it gives that child hope. So if they reported that incident to a teacher or a priest or any mandatory reporter, but because of their intellectual capacity, they couldn't put together all of the right words to say that that person failed them by not reporting that, then they have some additional time. This law will say that they have more than 18 months in 1 day. Because we've had recent cases where administrators and other folks have been, their cases were dismissed because the time had expired. Why would we want to expire that time for a child? Let's give that child some additional time. We're doubling that time frame from 18 months to 3 years, and I urge an aye vote on Senate Bill 49.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. President. Members, this bill addresses a serious policy issue, one which my colleague from Colorado Springs raises a set of considerations, serious and legitimate considerations. My colleague from Arapahoe County, the sponsor of the bill, has brought the bill for another serious set of considerations. We heard the bill in committee. It was originally drafted as 5 years. Where did this bill come from? I mean, I don't question the motivation, but we talked in committee about where it came from. There have been egregious cases in Colorado, particularly here in the Denver metro area, of children reporting to someone in their school that they were abused, molested, and those people are mandatory reporters under our statute. They shouldn't have needed 18 months to figure out that that needed to be reported. What has subsequently happened in those egregious cases is that over 18 months later, something else has happened and some other report is made, and suddenly everybody goes, oh, wait a minute. Maybe there was something to this thing that happened earlier. And then the question is, why do we have a mandatory reporting law in Colorado if it's not going to be mandatorily reported? Now, I have had statute of limitations debates in the other chamber and this one over my 11 sessions, and finding the right balance between severity of crime, memory, because the policies around statutes of limitations are not just about memory. They're about the question of should people have a crime hanging over their head. And that's why, despite the issues with memory, staleness of evidence, and all of those things, that there is no statute of limitations for murder, because it is such a serious crime that we believe that that policy and the need to punish murder and to bring it to trial, and the idea that it might be hanging over someone's head, is well overcome by the severity of the crime. So, you know, I am just, as the ladies from the Sunrise Republican Women who are here today from my community know, just a simple country lawyer from Colorado Springs, and I struggled through law school twice, but each and every time that I struggled through law school, we discussed the pros and cons of statutes of limitations and where they are. We did that in committee, and we started with 5 years, and we started with some language that triggered the statute of limitations to be upon a written or verbal communication to the mandatory reporter, and that would trigger the statute starting to run. That was too narrow. We changed that language back to its original conception, which was reasonable knowledge, but we shortened it to 3 years. Statutes of limitations are not perfect. They recognize and are an embodiment of legislative judgment. I respect my colleague from Colorado Springs and the concerns there. I believe that on balance we found the right balance, and for that reason I ask for an aye vote on this bill. Thank you.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Senor Presidente. I too struggled alongside my colleagues in the Judiciary Committee with this bill. And not only do I appreciate the senator from Colorado Springs for having crafted an amendment that was thoughtful, but testimony in community provided some data that really helped to underscore how narrow of a population we're actually talking about. In just last year alone, 221,000 calls, mandatory reports were made. Of that, only 111 cases have been filed in the past 25 years, 26 cases in the past 5 years. So this is an exceptionally narrow piece of legislation, and I thank my good colleague, the senator from Arapahoe County, for bringing the bill, and I thank my colleague from Colorado Springs for bringing the amendment. I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion on Senate Bill 049, the motion before the body is the passage of Senate Bill 49. Are there any no votes? Senators Sonnenberg, Hill, Marble, with a vote of 31 ayes, 3 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, Senate Bill 049 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Cook, Gardner, Heisey, Court, Williams, Story, Winter, Priola, Pedersen, Danielson. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to House Bill 1029.
House Bill 1029 by Representative Martin, Senator Crowder, concerning the Republican River Water Conservation District and in connection therewith expanding the boundaries of the district and adjusting the meeting schedule of the district's board of directors.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1029. Ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1029? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the passage of House Bill 1029. Are there any no votes? Senators Sonnenberg, Marble, Lundin, Gardner, with a vote of 30 ayes, 4 noes, 0 absent, 1 excuse, House Bill 1029 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Quorum, Story, please add the president. General order, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself to the Committee of the Whole for considerations of general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar, and Senator Zenzinger will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title of all the bills on the general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar?
Senate Bill 63 by Senators Priol and Story and Representative Mateo Valdez A. concerning a strategic action plan to address infant and family child care home shortages in Colorado. Senate Bill 95 by Senators Stott and Holbrook and Representatives Hanson and McKean concerning the review of the funding formula for institutions of higher education. House Bill 1036 by Representatives Arndt, McLaughlin, and Senator Todd concerning annual stipends for certain nationally certified school professionals.
Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the adoption of all the bills on the consent calendar and their associated committee reports, which includes Senate Bill 63, along with the Health and Human Services Committee report and the Appropriations Committee report, Senate Bill 95, and Senate Bill 1030, or House Bill 1036.
Is there any discussion on any of the committee reports on the consent calendar? The motion before the body is the adoption of all the committee reports on general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee reports are adopted. Is there any discussion on any of the bills on consent calendar? The motion before the body is the adoption of all the bills on general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. All of those in favor say aye. No. There is discussion. Yes. Senator Lundin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I do have a question on House Bill 1036 of the bill sponsor. This is something that I may have missed in committee and would like to get an answer to. it would be relevant to the full ultimate determination of my vote as the bill proceeds. That question is, this is regarding a bill that provides stipends for school professionals dealing with psychology and so forth. I did not get the answer in the committee, and it is my error, quite frankly, for not asking the question. Would all schools, all LEPs be eligible for this, or would it only be licensed teachers in neighborhood schools, or licensed psychologists in neighborhood schools?
Senator Todd.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And it's my understanding it would be for any and all. Licensed teachers, is that what you're asking? And psychologists? I'm sorry, I was running back to get my folder while you were asking the question. So if you want to clarify the question, then perhaps I can clarify my answer.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you very much, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to clarify the question. To put a finer point on it, would professionals in charter schools be eligible for this stipend as well, or does it require specifically a teacher's license in order to be eligible for this stipend and this national certification?
Senator Todd.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And my understanding is that it would be for charter and public schools, that it would not be limited one or another. I will clarify that and make sure that that is correct. The intent is that we want to make sure that any and all teachers would be eligible for this.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So I guess at this point, instead of continuing to do violence to the consent calendar, perhaps we could pull this bill off of consent and deal with it with normal order or special order seconds later. Sorry for diving.
Thank you, Senator Lundin. The bill will be pulled off of the consent calendar. Minority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Request a senatorial 5.
Granted. The motion before the body is the adoption of all of the bills on general orders, second reading of bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the bills are adopted. Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the committee to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee will hold reports that consideration of the following test bills being seconded thereof makes following recommendation on Senate Bill 63 as amended, Senate Bill 95 passed second reading order, gross place calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1036 removed from the general order, second reading of bills calendar. Placed at the end of the general order, second reading of bills calendar for 2/12/2019.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 1 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 063 is amended. Senate Bill 095 passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1036 removed from the general order second reading of bills consent calendar and placed at the end of the general order second reading of bills calendar for 2/12/2019. Mr. Carpenter, please add Senator Scott to the roll call. General order, second reading of bills. Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The motion is adopted, and the Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills, and Senator Williams will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 19102?
Senate Bill 102 by Senator Zenzinger and Representative Tone concerning permitting a public school to include operations as a community school and its innovation plan.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 102.
To the bill, Senator Zenzinger.
Members, back in 2017, the Colorado convened the Educational Leadership Council, which directed an 18-month process toward creating a vision and a strategic plan for education in Colorado. And the council identified several key principles of this vision and several strategies in order to meet that vision. Principle number 2 was laid out thusly, that all children and youth from every background are able to achieve and maintain physical, mental, social, and mental health. So one of the 3 strategies that was called out by the ELC to meet this principle was to, quote, research effective and sustainable models of community schools or other integrated service models appropriate for a variety of communities in Colorado, end quote. So the purpose of this bill is that under existing law, a school may become an innovation school by submitting an innovation plan to its local school board and having the local board approve that plan. The bill defines community school and permits a public school to include in its innovation plan that it will operate as a community school. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 19102? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 19102. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? And the ayes have it, and Senate Bill 19102 is adopted. Senator Zenzinger. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 1917?
Senate Bill 17 by Senator Zenzinger and Representative Roberts concerning the exemption of the Department of Transportation from existing Reporting and Transportation Commission approval requirements when it acquires land needed for specified highway-related purposes by means of other than condemnation.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 17 and the committee report.
To the committee report, Senator Zenzinger.
The Appropriations Committee actually adopted a positive appropriation to the bill because this is something that will save us all money, and so therefore there wasn't I don't believe there was a transportation report. Just to clarify, Madam, we are discussing the Appropriations Committee report, correct? I will move the Transportation Committee report.
Senator Zinzinger, to the committee report.
So the bill came out of committee unanimously. There wasn't. There were no amendments. Apparently, we did have an amendment that I must have moved. And it was a good amendment because we all voted yes. Around providing written notice to the affected landowner, including the date, time, and location.
We were on the appropriations. Vote on the appropriations committee. Okay. Is there any further discussion on the Transportation and Energy Committee report? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of the Transportation and Energy report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no, and the ayes have it, and the Transportation and Energy report is adopted. There's an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read the amendment?
Amendment L002 to Senate Bill 17 by Senator Zinzinger.
Senator Zinzinger.
Thank you, colleagues. I just want to explain a little bit. I move L002. What happened is there was a technical drafting error in which in the committee report that we just adopted, there were two words that were missing from that committee report that are pretty substantive. Those two words are the word providing and the word 10 days. If we're going to be providing notice, we have to allot the amount of time. So technical error, that's why this was pulled off of consent. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on L002? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of L002. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nays. And the ayes have it. L002 is adopted. Senator Zinzinger.
Thank you, colleagues. Good bill, vote yes.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 19017? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 19017. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 19017 is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1036?
House Bill 1036 by Representatives Arnn, McLaughlin, and Senator Todd concerning annual stipends for certain nationally certified school professionals.
Majority Leader Finberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1036 lay over until Wednesday, February 13th.
The motion before the body is to lay over House Bill 1036. I'm sorry, what day? Till tomorrow. For Thursday. Wednesday, February the 13th. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? And the ayes have it. House Bill 1036 will be laid over till tomorrow, Wednesday, the 13th. Senator Finberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion before the committee is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee will execute reports out on consideration of the following tax bills being second read over. Makes the following recommendation on Senate Bill 102, Senate Bill 17 as amended past second read order. Gross place calendar for the reading and final passage. House Bill 1036 laid over until 2/13/19, retaining its place on the calendar.
Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
The motion is for the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 102, Senate Bill 017, as amended, passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1036 laid over until 2/13/2019 and retaining its place on the calendar. Considerations of resolutions. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Joint Resolution 5 lay over until Wednesday, February 13th, 2019.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and SJR 005 will lay over until Wednesday, February 13th. Consideration of House amendments to Senate bill.
Senate Bill 18 by Senator Scott and Marble and Representative McLaughlin and Singh concerning the age requirement to drive a commercial vehicle in interstate commerce.
Senator Marble.
Thank you, Mr. President. We move that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 18.
Senator Marble.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bottom line, on page 2, between lines 17 and 20, 26 words were changed to be exactly 26 words again. But they did remove one word, which was a reference to person, which bottom line, this technical grammatical change means they speak English better than the Senate.
Senator Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. And also, from what we're hearing is that this was the first bill that the House was practicing learning how to review and try to make changes to try to make senators look badly, but it hasn't worked. But we thought, you know, we just thought we'd be fair with them and concur and make them feel better, so they don't bother your bills. So this is a favor to all of you.
Is there any further discussion? The motion before the body is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 018. Are there any no votes? Senator Hill.
Should have known. It's the tennis shoes.
With a vote of 34 ayes, 1 no vote, 0 absent, and 0 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Marble.
Thank you, Mr. President. We move again for the adoption of Senate Bill 18 and ask for an aye vote.
The motion is for the repassage of Senate Bill 018. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 18 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Senator Quorum. Consideration of governor's appointments. Mr. Carpenter, please read the appointment for the Executive Director of the Department of Public Health and Environment.
Executive Director of the Department of Public Health and Environment, effective January 28, 2019, for term expiring. At the pleasure of the Governor, Jill Hunsaker Ryan, MPH of Edwards, Colorado, appointed.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the appointment of Jill Ryan to serve as the Executive Director of the Department of Public Health and Environment.
Is there any further discussion? The motion is for the appointment of Jill Hunsaker Ryan to serve as the Executive Director of the Department of Public Health and Environment. Are there any no votes? Senator Smallwood. Senator Cook. Senator Marble. With a vote of 32 ayes, 3 no votes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, the appointment is confirmed. Jill Ryan is confirmed as the Executive Director of the Department of Human Health Services, Public Health and Environment. Signing of bills.
The President has signed House Bill 1015.
Message from the House.
The House is passed on third reading and transmitted to the Revised Statutes. House Bills 1083, 1109, amendments printed in the House Journal February 11, 2019. The House is passed on third reading and transmitted to the Revised Statutes. House Bill 1136.
Message from the Reviser.
We herewith transmit without comment House Bill 1136 without comment as amended House Bill 1083 and 1109.
Announcements. Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President, my dear President. Today, members, is EMS Day at the Capitol. You might notice in the back of the Senate chambers, you see some men in uniform looking mighty dapper today. And I can tell you, every time I see you, you make me proud to be an American. I can tell you why you make me feel proud is because whenever you call 911, someone responds, and they look exactly like you. People don't call 911 because they're having a good day. People call 911 because they are in crisis. And when you're in crisis, you're looking for someone to help. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for being there in times of crisis. You show up at the scene, and when you show up at the scene, we don't even know what the scene might look like. It might be a vehicle that's upside down, and you look inside that car and you see a baby that's still trapped in a car seat. You are truly saving lives. And you never know what danger you might see that day. But it all starts with a call. It all starts with 911. And I can't imagine what it's like to be a 911 operator, because she hears the terror and the trauma of what's going on in that home, on that roadside, and then they dispatch people like you to rush to the scene. So I'm just here to say thank you for answering the call, because it's people like you that's making a difference when we don't have other kinds of support around. You're there for us. So thank you for your service, thank you for your dedication, and thank you for the passion for the work you do. I share these comments on behalf of my dear President, President Leroy Garcia, and also as relates to the body of this chamber. So on behalf of the state of Colorado and the state Senate, we appreciate all you do. Thank you so very much.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to request a moment of personal privilege because there is going to be a reception that I would like to announce. Is there an announcement?
Senator Fields.
Thank you, dear Mr. President. Members, this evening from 5:30 to 7 at the University Club, we're going to have a special reception for our EMS Association of Colorado. We would love for you to stop by so you can personally extend your thanks to them. Thank you.
Senator Todd.
Thank you. Mr. President, I feel like that's kind of an under admonishment of who you are, but thank you. Thank you this morning. And I want to invite you tomorrow morning to a reception that is going to be held down on the first floor. There will be a group of international students joining the the Capitol for us to be able to come and meet and greet. Now, the reason that they are here is a program called Study Colorado. It is an initiative that is housed in the Colorado Department of Higher Education that supports internationalizing efforts to Colorado's colleges and universities. And they will be present tomorrow. We have almost 12,000 international students at our colleges and universities, and these students contribute over $460 million annual dollars to the Colorado economy, making it one of Colorado's state's fifth largest exports. And so that is a major impact, but also the culture, the influence, the language that comes to our different universities and colleges is instrumental. So please join me in the North Foyer for breakfast tomorrow morning and meet some of these international students that are here in Colorado at our colleges and universities. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Priol.
Thank you, Mr. President. And members, just a side note, I don't understand why it's so hard because I don't think he's going to be doing seconds in the next 2 years. But that's another issue. Just an announcement. Building Jobs for Colorado is having a reception at University Club tonight from 4:30 to 6:30. It's going to have Associated General Contractors, Colorado Contractors Association, such. Hope to see you there.
Senator Janot.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Senate Local Government Committee, we are meeting at 2 o'clock today in room 354. We're going to be hearing 3 sunset reviews: Emergency Planning Subcommittee, Public Safety Subcommittee, and Fire Suppression Program, as well as House Bill 1050. So again, 2 o'clock in room 354. Thanks.
Senator Court.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance Committee, listen up. We're going to change the order of our bills this afternoon. We're going to hear Senator Crowder's 98 first, then we'll go to 106, 67, and 130. So please, heads up that we're just flipping the first 2 around. Thank you. 2 o'clock.
Senator Woodward.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, as you may know, Loveland, Colorado is known worldwide as the Sweetheart City. It is famous for its Valentine remailing program. For 71 years, more than 60 volunteers lovingly hand stamp and remail Valentines from all 50 states and more than 110 countries across the globe. I'd like to introduce you to the Student Council President of Mountain View High School, a 4.0 student and one of the best examples of the great young people we have in Colorado. Please welcome Miss Loveland Valentine Kat Pfeiffer.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. Transportation and Energy Committee, we are not hearing the sunset review on the PUC today. We have 1 bill in committee, but we are not doing the PUC sunset review. See you at 1:30.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am delighted to greet and welcome my beloved sorority sisters of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, Inc. Will you please stand? Just to give you a little sense of who we are the oldest Greek letter organization that was established by African American college women at Howard University in 1908. Currently, we have over 300,000 members worldwide. Our motto is service to mankind. Our foundation is about service. Our signature is about service. So on behalf of the Colorado State Senate and our president, we want to welcome you. And if you notice, we're wearing pink and green because those are our colors. Thank you for being here today.
Any further announcements? Seeing none, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate recess until 2 p.m. today.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will stand in a recess until 1400 today.